The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavior loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Your own shadow is the psychological material that you reject about yourself. But whenever you disagree with somebody, you're interacting with your own shadow. Now, this sounds extremely weird because if somebody comes to you and tells you, I can fly, I just jumped off the balcony yesterday and then I had wings and could fly, and you say, no, this isn't true, according to what I just said, this would be like just some shadow projection. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if somebody comes to you and says, the earth is flat, and your internal reaction is, I disagree, it is your own ego. Not because the earth is actually flat, but the sense of disagreement is ego. Now, to unpack this, I need to clarify what it really is when I say the sense of disagreement. When you disagree with somebody, what you're doing is you're distancing yourself from their experience. This often happens in the words we use. So, of course, I'm now using the word disagreement in a more, let's say, amplified sense. Or you could also say in a phenomenological sense, which means how you experience something. And what I'm trying to zoom in on is the experience of disagreeing with somebody. Disagreement creates distance with a person. So when somebody tells you that the earth is flat and your sense is disagreement, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to distance your reality model from their reality model. And it's this distancing that creates a sense of separation and disconnection. So you cannot empathize with their experience of life where the earth is flat because you have distanced yourself from them. Very logical and rational people listen to others always looking for disagreement, or they react with disagreement as their first reaction when a word doesn't fit their own reality model, instead of trying to understand the reality model of the other person. Because a lot of words are tied to how we think about existence as a whole. And if you hear certain words applied in a way that you wouldn't, you are not trying to think, okay, so how does he mean that? Like, what is his experience like? But you think, this is wrong. This is not how things are. So you impose your own reality model onto them, say that this isn't true, and then push them away. Now, disagreement means that there is a version of reality that we're not cohering on. So you see something in reality, and I see something different, and we're disagreeing because we're both seeing something different, and then we are in disagreement, which is generally uncomfortable because we want to agree so we can have a coherent reality model and all work together. So if you autistically use this definition of disagreement where you experience disagreement as just like this disconnect, then the word disagreement kind of loses its meaning because we're still trying to find out what is the nature of reality, and the nature of reality is that the earth isn't flat. So my point here isn't to tell you there is no truth and it's free for all, everybody can just invent whatever they want, and if you disagree, then it's just your own ego. Like, that would be quite stupid. But I want to focus on your need to disagree with people and this reflection to be skeptical about stuff. If you are agnostic, you don't fall anywhere. Like, you can be agnostic about the existence of God, meaning that you don't believe in a God, but you also do not believe in a God. You're just agnostic about it. You don't fall in one camp or another. If you ask me about the sphere of the earth, and if the earth is a sphere, then on a very real note, I'm not agnostic about it, right? I'm very certain that the earth is a sphere. But experientially, if somebody comes to me and tells me the earth is flat and this is why, my experience of the person is as if I'm agnostic about it. Like, my reaction is almost never disagreement. When I disagree with somebody, it's very intentional. It's, I don't think you see the truth. I'm going to tell you what the truth is. And this then can come up as extremely arrogant and assertive, right? Because I'm completely, it's not just that I'm dismissing the person, but I'm just completely invalidating their experience 100%, and I fully commit to saying, no, this is wrong, this is how it is like. And at the end of the day, this is what a disagreement is, right? So in any practical sense of the word, I am disagreeing with a person. But the experience for me is quite different than what it used to be. And this goes into the detailed nature of phenomenology, which is very difficult to describe. But before, it had personal stakes when I did this. So when I disagreed with somebody, my own ego was involved, and I needed to prove the other person wrong and prove myself right. And in there's a sort of disagreement there that, is more about you than about the actual truth of the matter. And you'll always be blind to what the actual truth is if this is, the way you disagree, because it's just pure reaction. What you're doing when you are picking apart these, reality models and saying where it's true and where it's not true, what you're really doing is you're fighting your own shadow, because you are rejecting reality models or parts of existence that you do not accept. Like, if you were to imagine that you are living a life of a person who believes in the flat earth, you probably would imagine this as quite uncomfortable, because it's very much a delusional state. So if you imagine yourself to be other people who have different opinions than you, or more so that act in ways that is different than you, maybe jealous, maybe greedy, maybe angry, and you want to distance yourself from them, which to a certain extent is natural, you're also distancing yourself from the part within your own subconscious that feels angry and jealous and uncomfortable and hateful and better than others and hierarchical and primal and all of this stuff that we like to brush aside. And you can see this in the online environment all the time. Like, people love to fight and they love to disagree and they love to debate, because it distances themselves from other people and reinforces their own narrative. And by pushing it away, they create a shadow of, this is not me. But since we are all humans and we live in the same reality and in the same plane of existence, we are all shadows of each other. There's no way you can truly distance yourself from a person acting as if it is not part of reality. And what I'm arguing for here is a radical form of empathy, where you embody the fact that all facets of reality are equally true, and that's why you cannot really disagree with them. Now, it is not true that the earth is flat, but the person who lives their entire life believing that the earth is flat is a real person, and it's a real life, and it's the real reality model, and it's the real experience, and it is exactly as real as yours, although your ego makes you believe that you are more real than others. And to a certain extent, you might also say that the sense of separation is embedded in life. Like, you have a physical body and you are not my physical body, for example. So from my perspective, all that exists is my physical body and the things that I interact with. And for you, it's the same, but you have a different point of reference. So you might think that the ego is like this body separation that is just how things are. But that's not correct. Like, there are boundaries between you and me in some physical sense. Like, I have my body and you have your body. But the ego isn't what this boundary is. The ego is the imagined boundary between us. It's the idea that you are more real than I am real, which is just not the case. It cannot possibly be the case. It's the idea that other people's life experiences matter less than yours, which also cannot be the case. It has to be some sort of self mechanism that thinks itself to be more important than others. And to a certain extent, this is part of your natural biological survival mechanism. And it is confusing, for sure, but your biological survival mechanism is also not what the ego is, because the need for survival is found in all of your nervous system and all of what your body naturally does, like your stomach, your heart, your lungs. Like all of this is there to make you survive. So the entire machinery is there to survive. The ego is more of a social survival mechanic. Like it cares more about its relationship to the heart and to the breath and to other people and to existence. And there it tries to survive. And the way it survives there is by having opinions and then by distancing itself from other people's opinions. So it has a sense of identity. So there are a lot of nuances here that easily get brushed aside and they are difficult to understand. But as long as there are parts of existence or reality that you reject, you are fighting against your own shadow because you are not accepting how things are. There are horrible things that happen in this world, and there are horrible things that will happen and have happened, both to you and to other people. And the instinct to be like, I don't accept this about myself or other people makes sense because, we want the best for us when we empathize and notice, okay, we're all kind of in this together. Why would we make each other suffer? So there's this one aspect that says, okay, we can do better than this, which wants to integrate the shadow and be like, okay, let's look honestly at what have I done, how can I do it better, and let's see what can be improved here. And then there's this other part that says, no, this is absolutely unacceptable, unredeemable. People shouldn't be like this, and I will never accept this as a part of myself. And by doing so, you are creating a shadow that you can never integrate, and you will get blind to all the parts of yourself where you are exactly like them, because you are also human. So you also have the same capacity to act as evil as other evil people. And maybe through circumstances or through your own levels of awareness or your own sense of empathy or who knows what, you're not like them. But this doesn't make their experience less real. And it doesn't make the capacity of what they made or let happen less real. So what I am arguing for is to notice this tendency to disagree. And you can remain in a position of healthy skepticism where you can have 5 different opinions or hear 5 different opinions and not really believe any of them, like not land anywhere immediately, which I often call staying in superposition. Like you stay in a superposition where you have multiple opinions or viewpoints and you don't need to instinctively fall into one of them. And then you can just stay there because your identity is flexible enough to not be part of a tribe or part of a belief system. And you just, stay in this uncertainty. And then from there, you might slowly find a position where you're like, okay, this is the truth. This is the reality. This way I'm going to operate. I'm not saying that you can never land somewhere. This would be dumb. And then you would probably believe that, it doesn't matter if the earth is a sphere or not, which it matters for a wide variety of reasons, like our entire understanding of the universe hinges on the fact that, gravity works this way. But it doesn't mean that now you cannot connect with people who have radically different viewpoints than yours. Agreeing and disagreeing are very relevant when you're talking about factual things, like how are we going to organize society? How are we going to interact with each other as people? Like, how are we supposed to work this stuff out? But when somebody just talks about their own experience or their view of reality, try to just listen to their experience and see what it's like for them. And in the same vein, you will be able to do this for yourself. You will be able to not hate yourself so much, or disagree with yourself so much, or argue with yourself so much, or overthink things all the time. And you will see that you can find truth in almost anything. Because experience and qualia and phenomenology is where truth really lives. It's where things actually happen. And where things actually happen, there's not that much of room for debate. Like when things are how they are and you see that they are how they are, then disagreement or agreement aren't very important there. Like if you get if you get your finger chopped off, it's going to hurt and there's no room for agreement or disagreement. Now, this is all important for psychological wholeness and integrating the nature of your own experience. This is not an academic framework with which to discover better technologies or finding new laws of physics. Disagreement is extremely important in all of these areas of science or psychological studies and all of the academic real world. So I hope you understand that I'm drawing a difference here between psychological interaction with other people and instinctively agreeing with how they are wording or framing things instead of understanding them, and rigorous intellectual work where differentiation and disagreement and agreement are highly important. And it's actually disagreement that I use to deconstruct people's frameworks. When people come to me and they have had some shocking identity crisis where they suddenly lose their contact with experience, with their own identity, then they usually come with certain frameworks like determinism or free will or death, like the inability to die or being one with God or whatever mystical or psychological weird funk people fall into. And what I do in my ego analysis for people is that I find where do they cling to a sense of identity and then disagree with that and push against that. Because the same way you can kind of agree with everything or see the truth in everything, you can also see the falsehood in everything. And for people, this is extremely uncomfortable when they are connected or attached to a certain aspect of their psyche. For example, for a lot of spiritually inclined people, it's the idea of being consciousness, and that consciousness is fundamental. Like if you move from the materialist framework to the like panpsychist or consciousness framework, now you're suddenly attached to consciousness as like a thing that you are. And again, holding superpositions here, it's not easy, but you're also not consciousness. Like it's also a fantasy of the ego that the ego clings to, that makes it believe itself to be permanent, through the idea of consciousness as being like this solid thing that you are, which then makes you believe that you cannot die and stuff like this, which to a certain degree is also an illusion of the ego that the ego finds very scary to let go of. So you can see that the rabbit hole goes very, 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 very deep, and it's truly a blast for me to talk about this stuff and help people through this. If you want one-on-one help, you can see the page in the description